I'm John Panza. I'm the honors coordinator here at the Eastern Campus, associate professor of English. How many of you have taken me before? How many of you are in here or are taking me currently? Jeff, yeah, you've taught for me. Does that count? You did sit in. That is true. You have sat in. So I'm not really good with numbers because I teach poetry. So I'm going to rattle off some numbers here. How many of you are baseball people? How many of you are into baseball? Okay. If you're not into baseball, none of this is going to make much sense. We can probably clarify some of these statistics perhaps, but so this is Jensen Lewis. Jensen's a former player for the Cleveland Indians. Now he is a broadcaster for the Cleveland Guardians. So he's been with the team throughout his entire career at this point. He was drafted twice. This is complicated. This is a baseball thing. He was drafted twice. Once straight out of high school in 2002. He chose to instead play at Vanderbilt University because a lot of baseball players come straight out of high school. It's sometimes a better decision just to go on and play college. He was drafted by the Cleveland Indians in 2002. He was then redrafted by the Cleveland Indians in 2005 when he graduated from Vandy and went on to pitch for the Indians from 2007 to 2010. You then went on to, is it Arizona? And then on to the Cubs. Yes. So Cubs franchises. Okay. So his entire career ran from what, 2007 to
2005 to 2013.
2005 to 2013. Okay. His career pitching stats are 7-11, 7 wins, 11 losses. You were a relief pitcher. So don't judge that 7-11. You can't. If you know anything about baseball, you cannot judge that. His career ERA, though, is 3.68, which means he did not get run support. So it's a very good ERA for a relief pitcher. 177 strikeouts over the course of your career. I believe that stat's correct. 198 innings pitched, which, by the way, for relief pitchers, 198 innings pitched is a lot because most relief pitchers don't throw more than maybe an inning at a time these days. And then this is my favorite, 14 saves. Over the course of your career, which is really awesome. You're not, I mean, not class A, but it's if
I got a running start, maybe.
If you get a running start, okay. He currently serves as since 2015 as the pregame and postgame host for the Guards on Bally Sports. I don't know what's going to happen in the new
FanDuel Sports now, but it's going away.
Yeah. Okay. So you will remain with us, and you have earned 3 Lower Great Lakes Emmy Awards, which is actually pretty rad because that's for sports that's pretty awesome. So we have Jensen here to talk a bit about his career, and so here we are, Jensen Lewis.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. So, John, kind of relaying some of the athletic statistics, but today just kind of want to pick your guys' brains, and just forewarning, I may involve a few of you in the presentation, but to kind of expand off of what John had to say, born and raised, actually, my parents are from Medina, and so I was born in Cincinnati. We moved back here, and then we moved back to Cincinnati because of my dad's job. So I've been Ohio through and through, but Cleveland diehard, Indians, Browns, and Cavs my entire life. So I was one of those kids where I knew what I wanted to do, probably when I was about 8 or 9 years old, and the rest is history, as they say. So I was the kid that gave up going to the movies with friends on Saturdays and Sundays, and I stayed home to watch Baseball Tonight on ESPN. Whenever the Indians were playing, that's where I was, because that was my dream, was to play for this club. And at the ripe old age of 23, after my junior year of high school or junior year of college, the Indians drafted me, and then I spent about 2 years in the minor leagues coming up, and then made my debut on my dad's birthday of sorts. So I told him after that, I said, barring the birth of my future children, I don't think there's really a better birthday present I'm ever going to give you. So that was pretty neat. But I was 23 when I made my debut. As my journey progressed, and I'll kind of relate it to where you guys are now. In high school, I was really good at math and writing, and I was horrible at science and social studies. So I kind of knew where my bread is buttered. I could write, I could speak, and it was something that kind of came naturally to me. The public speaking part was always a tool that I thought maybe I won't have to use because I'll play 15 years and I'll make a boatload of money and then I don't have to do anything else. Not everyone gets to do that, but I still played 9 years, and it kind of fell into my lap, the opportunity. And just so people are aware, the opening day roster of all 30 teams when I played was 750. So 750 players across 30 teams. there are 30 analysts for 30 teams. So one analyst per team in broadcasts. So you do the math. Crazy to think that it would be easier to make a major league roster than it would be to get into a broadcast booth. So the numbers were against me, even though I had played and I was, trying to cover my childhood dream team. So a lot of what I hope to relate to you today is that even where you are right now, in just a year, maybe 2, maybe 3, to relate it to where my story was, you could have never told me that at age 40 this year, I would have completed my 12th year as far as media goes on the television side. And I've just finished a decade on Sirius XM MLB Network Radio. It was wild to me, but it was amazing how the path kind of, coalesced with where things were. So as far as the college side goes, I wanted to go to Stanford. That was where I wanted to get as far away from my parents as possible. I'm sure some of us can relate. And I thought a 4-hour flight was far enough. I was probably an above average test taker, SAT, ACT, and the admissions counselor there and the admissions advisor said, you're not getting in. So what I did was I made kind of an Excel sheet of all the different schools that I had interest in from a baseball perspective, and that also had communications or journalism or mass media, which is something I wanted to do, at least have a degree in and a backup plan. Well, Vanderbilt, where I eventually ended up, did not have any journalism or mass media major whatsoever. They had just a broad communications major, and that was it. Okay, that was also the last place that I wanted to go. Now, back in 1999, 2000, the internet not as deep as far as being able to acquire all the facts and things that you're looking for to compare. You had to basically go to those colleges, talk to the professors or department head and say, hey, what's it like here? And trying to mesh that with being a high school athlete, that was tough on the travel plans. So I had to really figure out and spend a lot of time on what did I like, what did I not like, and if I never played baseball again, could I be successful as a student, not a student athlete? And so that really started to separate from a quality of life standpoint where I had to figure out if my career in baseball doesn't work out, what do I want to do? So I relay that to you guys. If you guys would raise your hand right now, do you have a plan of what you want to do if you leave this room today? No one? What would you want to do?
You mean what's future plans?
Yeah.
I want to transfer to a 4-year college.
Okay, as far as a career path, do you have an idea of what you want to do?
Yeah, I want to get my master's in planning. So.
Okay, and you, ma'am? Okay. And what is your name? Legacy? All right, I'm going to use Legacy as a perfect example, okay? So what I did was when I was starting to go through and figure out, okay, what do I want to do beyond baseball, was kind of what you did. Seek out professors or at least people in the media side within the community. Okay, who can I learn from? What can I do? Watched a bunch of newscasts. I'm like, okay, that's not very good. Okay, that's really good. Let me try and pattern my game after that a little bit. Beautiful. Also figuring out too, I got to be able to do this on my own. I got to be able to get into certain places or in certain courses that will mold me or at least expand my skill set. One of the greatest classes I took was a required course called Public Speaking 101. It was taught by a former presidential speechwriter for 2 US presidents. And the first day he came in, he had 3 books that we were to read from, just kind of slammed them on the desk. And there's about 30 of us in the group. This is required, mind you, so I have to take this no matter what. And he says, this will be the hardest class you ever take at this university. 10 people get up and walk out. So you had that first 7-day period where you could still kind of jump in or jump out of classes before your schedule was finalized. Well, in my head, I'm like, great, 3 days a week, this is going to be awesome. Well, that was a Monday, came back on a Wednesday, there's 15 of us. So half the people are gone. He kind of chuckles and he goes, this will be the best class you ever take. We had to weed out the suckers. And boy, he was right.
We're not allowed to do that anymore.
Moral of the story was, he said, okay, you're going to face challenges in life, things you don't want to do, but you're required to do. and this class is going to help shape you. Even better, he didn't give grades in this class. It was given by all of the other students. So what happened was we had 4 speeches. It was all videotaped, and it was played back in front of everybody. Now, how confident would anyone be to come up here right now and give a 30-second PSA about themselves? Anybody? No? How many people in here have seen Wolf of Wall Street? Okay, sell me this pen, right? All right. And so here you are as a freshman and like, okay, well, this is real life. This is what has to happen. You've got to be able to get up in front of a room. You've got to be able to sell yourself, and you have to be one of one. How do I stand out? Yeah, I can throw a ball 95 miles an hour, but it's kind of finite on my career path there. I can only do it for so long. You know, the old adage in NCAA athletics, most of us are going pro in something other than sports. And they're right. And it may be right after your senior year. And so what I implore you guys to do, for no one raising their hands except for a couple, is if you don't know what you want to do yet, that's okay. But let's get a move on, because it's going to come quick. And I can tell you from my freshman year to my junior year when I became draft eligible, that was the quickest 3 years of my life. It was the best, but time flew. And I'll give you the God's honest truth. I didn't know where I was going to pivot if I didn't get drafted. I felt I was pretty smart. I felt I had a good lay of the land, but I didn't really have a concrete plan. And so I'll leave you that as priority number 1. Priority number 2, and legacy hit on it. If I were to ask people in here what you want to do, and have you asked anyone that's currently doing it right now what it takes to get there? How many hands do I have? What do you want to do?
Sonographer.
Okay, and you've reached out to people that are doing it currently?
Yeah.
And how many hours, if you will, ballpark it, have you had with this person?
Well, I've actually started working at a hospital and kind of surrounding myself with those people.
Great.
So I'm there like maybe 10 hours a week.
Fantastic. The amount of people I encounter that say, oh, I want to do this, and the first question I ask is, have you even approached someone about that? It's like earth-shattering. Oh, I should probably reach out to someone. On the media side of it, I'll just walk you through it. I tell a lot of our people and our young people who are just coming in, who are production assistants, just trying to get an idea of, do they want to be in front of the camera? Do they want to be behind it? Do they, not like this field whatsoever? Get as much experience with as many different people, and not just one field. Okay, if you're in healthcare, if you're a sonographer, I would even go around to surrounding departments. You never know what can really sharpen your skill set and diversify you. And let me hit on that part. So my job was pretty simple when I played. I had to get the guy out that was in the batter's box. Easier said than done. Took a lot of practice, but I got pretty good at it. Now, when I failed, I had to be a pretty objective critic of why I couldn't get him out. This guy's paid a lot of money to beat me. That's great. But the numbers are in my favor. Most of the people that go to the Hall of Fame in baseball will succeed 3 out of 10 times. Let me repeat that. Most people that go to the Hall of Fame in our sport succeed 3 out of 10 times. There is literally no other field besides meteorology where you can fail over 50% of the time and keep your job. Why do I bring that up? Whatever path you're looking at, you're going to have speed bumps. You will be defined by how you react off of that. And people are watching you right now. Whether it's assignments, whether it's in the field, whether it's real life experience. Scouts always looked for those of us that were really good. They wanted to see a game in which it didn't go well. How do you treat your teammates? How do you treat your coach? What's your body language? Do you hug your mom and dad? I had a scout come up to you, he goes, the thing that was a difference maker for me, you didn't have poor body language, even though it was a bad game. You went over and you hugged your parents and you said, thank you for bringing me to the game. Because that's what I wrote in my report. Crossed 3 other guys off that I came to see. What? Okay, so if you think that just the smallest of things can't be the largest decider, let me go ahead and tell you, I'm living proof of that. And I would never have guessed it until after the guy showed me the scouting report. He goes, this guy is a stand-up dude, can face adversity, can be positive in the face of some trouble, and is a guy that's a really someone who cares and is charismatic. Had nothing to do with getting anybody out. But that scout thought I could be an asset to an organization and I could build off that. So I give that to you guys. Whatever field you're looking at, whatever place you want to go, how do you stand out? How do you become one of one? Okay? What's your name?
Tim.
Tim, what do you want to do when you grow up?
I want to be a computer coder.
Okay. And how would you rank yourself as far as computer coding right now? Are you good? Are you above average? Are you elite?
Very entry level right now.
Okay, so we're moving up the rung.
Yeah.
What are you doing currently to sharpen your game?
Well, I'm definitely getting all the supportive math that's going to be necessary. And then I'm talking to some people that are in the field.
Great.
Good friends and whatnot, trying to build networking connections the best I can. Still just trying to make sure that I'm 100% comfortable with everything.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I'm going to want to be doing for the rest of my life.
Great.
So yeah, definitely just taking one step at a time and making sure I don't skip steps and staying on top of the ball instead of getting behind. And, yeah.
Love it. How many people in here have a LinkedIn account? First assignment tonight when you leave, go ahead and sign up. My better half, Michelle, is here, and one of the great things of my post-playing career happened when I came home from the gym. Now this is like year 9, year 10. I'm really well established in my current career, but for some reason just can't get to move on, can't get some national opportunities. And I was really getting frustrated. And she said, let me build you a LinkedIn page. It'll take 20 minutes. And I mean, I was down. I'm like, this is stupid. Like, no, it's not going to work. Well, we get it done. She walks me through, here's how you connect and, try and, gain some following and get some relationships established. I would say probably 5 months later, and I went all through all the different regional sports networks, all the national networks, production people, executive producers, the whole gamut. Nothing back. Somehow, some way at Comcast or NBC Universal, I get in contact with a director of engineering who I thought was on the production side. And he sends me a message. He goes, I'm not the point person, but I know who is. Here's their info. You gotta be kidding me. 5 months and 1,532 connections later, this is how it happens? You never know. And so from that point on, I got in touch with the executive producer. We had a Zoom call a week later. She hired me to do the pre and post game of my first national gig in Fenway Park. It was not a Cleveland game. It was the Tigers and the Red Sox. You just never, I'm telling you, you just never know. The smallest, when you think it is impossible, don't stop. Keep reaching, keep going. Keep making as many connections as possible and keep refining your skill set. A lot of high school kids or college kids I talk about being one of one, okay? We hear a lot about social media stuff right now. I'm sure everyone here has a social media account or at least a couple, right? Does anyone not? Okay, that's what I figured. So in spring training every year, we would have a social media consultant or a media consultant come in and talk to us in the first week. Now this is right at the advent of when then Twitter and Facebook were king. Instagram wasn't really there yet. No TikTok. But what she did, she would come in and ask this question. Anybody want to volunteer their phone? And are okay with me going through any app and posting any post up in front of everybody? Not one person raised their hand. We're all like, wait a minute. What did I do? What did I post? I'm going back. Well, she did the hard work for us. She had gone through all of our accounts and she made a top 10 list. And it was basically a how-to not to do. Here we are, professional athletes. We are our own brand. A lot of people recognize us because of what we do on the field. A lot of people know what we do off the field because in this day and age, as you all well know, everyone wants to post everything about their life. I tell a lot of high school kids, You have no idea, but you are branding yourself right now. People that make decisions in the future can go back and see this. You can use the excuse, oh, I was young, only to a certain point, and then it's over. You guys in your situation, regardless of what grade you're in, are now on that precipice of someone looking through where there could be 1,000 applicants. How do you become one of one? How do you brand yourself as a difference maker? How do you put yourself in a position to say, not only will I be your best asset, I'm going to make your company better. And here's how. The ability to do that starts now. The other thing I like to do with people, how many people are comfortable with public speaking? Anybody in here? If I picked randomly, anyone would come up and be able to sell themselves? No? Most of the time you're gonna have to do an in-person interview or you do a Zoom call interview. For me, already a difference maker if you ask them, traveling aside, if you can come face to face. You're already showing proactiveness, confidence, which a lot of young people do not have to face the music. And that hiring person or that decision maker is already gonna look at you and say, okay, don't know this person, but they're willing to put themselves out there. Huge. Secondly, how many people have sung in a room by themselves or in the shower or with a group of friends? Okay? Did you ever feel you were embarrassed by your performance? No? Maybe? Maybe?
Not. If it's just like having a good time.
Okay. So I'll kind of parlay that with, who's your favorite artist? Taylor Swift. You ever kind of practiced in a mirror one of your favorite Swiftie songs? No, okay. What I'm getting at here is when you have to be in front of a room or you're trying to impress someone with your Swiftiness, if you've ever done it in a mirror and you're like, ugh, it's no good. If you think it's that, it definitely is, okay? The idea behind that, when you're getting ready to be in a position to be in front of a group or having to give a presentation or trying to get a job, practice it in front of a mirror. If it sounds awkward to you, it sure as heck is gonna sound awkward to them. And so just on the communication side, on the journalism side, I have to think in real time, is this gonna sound good or is this not gonna be good? And I don't get a pause because it's live TV. So I've had a lot of reps, I've had a lot of practice because of thinking ahead of, I need to be prepared. If this happens, I can go here. If this happens, I can say this. And I don't want to be too cheesy that people are like, oh, that was bad. Again, finding a way to separate yourself and also make yourself stand out in a way that is professional, is a different way of going about things. Doesn't have to be so far left or so far right that people can't gravitate to it, but becoming one of one. Something that you want to do that you can brand as yourself or put out there to say, okay, someone's going to recognize me. Last two things I'll talk about, and we'll take some questions for anyone that has it. So I finished my career in 2013. All of you could have gotten a hit off me that year. I could not get anybody out. I was playing with the Cubs at that time, and they released me at the end of April. I was living in Scottsdale, Arizona at the time, so I'd gone back, and here's the full circle moment of, yeah, I had my degree from Vanderbilt, but I had no pivot plan in my mind whatsoever. What was I gonna do? Well, for about 3 or 4 weeks, I kept training, and then Matt Underwood, who does the play-by-play for our Cleveland Guardians games, calls me out of the blue. He says, hey, know you're still looking for work for a team, but we have an opportunity on our pre- and post-game show for about 5 or 6 games. Are you interested? Sure. I didn't have 1 minute of live TV practice, live TV reps, or any on-camera experience whatsoever. Other than playing, yes, that's right. So in that current setup, I was like, I have no idea what to do. All I know what to do is to kind of rely on, I know the game, I'm strong with my knowledge about the game, and that's what I'm gonna do. So I put my life in my car, Basically packed everything up, told my girlfriend at the time, I gotta try. I gotta see what this is gonna do. It's about a 30-hour drive from Scottsdale, Arizona to Cleveland. I made it halfway the first day, 15 hours. So that put me right at about St. Louis. And literally out of a movie, Busch Stadium, where the Cardinals play, is all lit up at night because the Cardinals are home that night. And an overwhelming feeling came over me that I was done, that I had thrown my last pitch. And then the fear of the unknown crept in. Now what? So had I planned a little bit better before I left Vanderbilt of like, all right, if this thing doesn't really work or whenever it's done, I've got my pivot, it would have been a lot better. Now I'm going into a field that I have no practice, no repetition, no knowledge. I don't know anyone I'm working with, and I got to make some music. Came in the first day. Within 30 seconds of my first live shot, there's a bug about this big flying around the studio, okay? And I'm telling you, it wasn't a robot or anything. It was real. And sure as heck, when I get that first one shot, when they come right to me, where does that thing land? Right on my nose. Live TV, gotta go. So my co-host is trying not to just lose his mind laughing with what's going on. My phone, rookie mistake, is in my pocket on vibrate, because people are watching. I told all my friends and family. But I gotta go. Here, this is it. This is my first time. There it is, trial by fire. We got through it. And after that, I'm like, okay, if that's the worst that it is, I'm gonna be okay. Like, that was pretty rough to get thrown in the first minute. Well, the next day, the network crashes, meaning we can't go to commercial. So we have to keep talking until they can throw it to the commercial. And I know what insane people are like now because my producer, I have an IFB in my ear, he's talking to me while I'm trying to talk. So the voices are in my head and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. I am trying to talk. Can you please stop? Gotta go through it. It's live TV, gotta go. That's my first 48 hours of 12 years in the field. Wasn't prepared for it outside of, I knew the game, that's all I could go off of. So I played reaction and it ended up working out. Now, obviously through tens of thousands of hours, I've gotten better at what I do, but I still have room to improve. So if you feel good about where you're at now, keep moving. I always look at each year, my goal set of who's the number one guy ahead of me in my current position. I'm going to get him. When I pass him, who's the next guy? Next level. Just keep moving. That's how you make yourself one-on-one. The drive is there, it's unmistakable, and people will take in corporations, wherever, whatever field you get into, the best asset you can bring is motivation. The want to get better, the want to work. People will hire you that because then they can mold you, then they can help kind of guide you. If you've got that motor going, you're off to a great start. Last thing, how many people have classmates they don't like? We all do, okay? It's okay. One of the great parts about our game is there are so many different walks of life in baseball. We have a very high Latin American population. I learned Spanish in high school because something in me said, hey, if you have a Spanish or Latin American catcher, you kind of want to have to communicate, all right? Well, it ends up paying off in a pretty big way because there was an outing in the minor leagues where I wasn't doing too well. I had a Latin American at every infield position, so first, second, short, and third, and a Latin American catcher. I'm the only white guy, English-speaking guy, so I thought, in the middle of the infield. Yeah.
Is it Victor Martinez?
No. But he's a treat himself. We'll get to that. So my catcher comes out, hey, papi, what's going on? I was like, dude, I don't have it, man. So my pitching coach comes out. And I can hear the infielders in Spanish talking crap about me. Now, they didn't know that I knew. And so I said, boys, if I ever hear it again, we're going to have problems. Oh, lo siento, papi. Ay, Dios mío. Oh. From that day forward, there was a mutual respect because I wanted them to know I can communicate with you, and I want you to do better because it helps me do better too. From then on, it was inseparable as far as the connection. So, moral of the story, people you don't like are people that you don't know. Develop as many relationships as you can. If there's one thing I wish I could do all over again, would be to be fluent in Spanish. I feel like I missed out on so much of hearing guys talk in the dugout. I knew enough where I'm like, okay, you're saying what you're saying about me? Don't like that. Okay, we're gonna stop that now. But more so to the point of developing that part of the relationship could have taken me into a completely different stratosphere as far as what I was enjoying out of my job. You're gonna come across people you don't like or don't like you, but you're gonna be tasked with working with them successfully because your income or your quality of life depends on it. It's one of those things we all have to deal with. It's not gonna be easy all the time, but I can tell you the more that you put into it or the more you reach across, what's going on? Asking someone, what's the deal? How can we help? Makes everything a heck of a lot easier. And then finally, kid I played against in high school. He was really good at basketball. And for those of you that know what being posterized is, well, he got me. He dunked over me and it was not fun because all my friends made fun of me about it. I'm like, all right, well, I'm gonna get him back when we play baseball. And sure as heck, I did. I struck him out like 3 times in the spring. Well, fast forward about, let's call it 7 years. And the New York Mets make a trade with the Cleveland Indians. Who do you think got traded over to our team? That guy. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Who's the first guy he calls? Me. Say, hey man, what's up? I'm like, hey, kind of lots happened since then, huh? We had a good laugh. But I told him, I said, hey, whatever I can do to make the transition easy. I know you're coming from New York. Anybody you need to talk to, apartments, whatever you need, let me help. He goes, I really appreciate it. A guy that we couldn't stand each other when we were younger, all of a sudden we're teammates and tasked with helping each other out to make our team win. You never know when that circle is going to come back around. And I'm telling you, don't burn the bridge. Don't do it. Yeah, you might get embarrassed a time or two, but it ended up working out. Those people could be so important to the development in not only your career, but your life as well. Make sense? Questions? Thank you guys very much. Really appreciate the time. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Question? Oh, there we go.
There he is.
Any questions at all or anything you want to ask? If you don't, I'll ask a question and then hopefully it'll motivate you all. Does anyone have a question? All right, so I do have a question. You mentioned you've used a metaphor, because again, I teach poetry. You've used a metaphor over and over again of reps. And I know you work out, obviously, you work out. And obviously, when you play baseball, it's all about reps. Yep. I mean, especially for pitchers, it's especially the case. And could you talk a bit about that philosophy when it comes to your current profession?
Yeah. And I would say applying it to whatever skill set or whatever field you guys are interested in pursuing. I think we all recognize what we're good at, and we could be fair and objective in saying that. But how many of us in here would be able to be objective and constructively criticize what their weaknesses are? The quicker that you can recognize, hey, I'm deficient in an area that is going to be really important to my development, the better off you're going to be. And that's why I keep saying, like, sharpening that skill set, being able to do lots of things. We call it in my business wearing many hats. I can be an analyst. I can be a host. I can be a play-by-play man. I can be a field reporter. I can do any job that they would need on the broadcast. And what I wanted to do when I got in was first be really good at what I thought I was going to be good at, which was the analyst side. But as I kind of learned through that first year, I'm like, whoa, there's a lot of other opportunities within just this field. The more I can do, separating myself, becoming one-on-one, like this dude, we can plug and play him wherever. So what I did was I did my own broadcast myself, recorded it, a game that we had already watched, so I kind of knew what was going to happen, but just to see. I DVR'd all my pre and post game shows my first 2 to 3 years. Went back and watched them. Now, it's a little awkward at times because like I remember saying that, but sometimes when you watch it back, like, oof, I could have been better. I say a lot of the same words, so I need to increase my vocabulary. I need to be able to maybe explain simpler. How many people in here don't watch baseball? Fair amount. I need to be able to draw you in with simplicity and content where you're like, I know what you're talking about. I can relate. Another skill set to grow our audience, which increases our ratings, which means I get paid more. Means to an end for a lot of us, because that's what a job is, but just applying that to what all of you guys want to do, I did other reps in other parts of the field or other jobs to make sure if they ever called on me or they had a need, I was the guy. They didn't pass me up, and that happens. So the more you can be really sharp and really good at what you're good at and expand that, the better off you're going to be.
Any questions? Yeah, David.
I might not ask this well, but
Here, let me.
so how is, I mean, I watch a lot of baseball, see you a lot, you know, take a picture of you and Baby Hulk, send it to my wife whenever we win so that she knows. But on the flip side of that, how do you approach when we lose? How is the post-game analysis different? Because, you know, post-game is, I would imagine, a great deal easier when you win. You have things to celebrate,
Right.
etc. You don't have a disappointed fan base, you know, looking at, you know, the post-game going, oh, what happened?
Yeah.
How could they have done that? So how do you, as an analyst, approach that differently?
It's a great question. Because I played and because I don't play anymore, that's the first thing that always comes to mind. The game is really hard. It's very, very hard. So no personal attacks, no kind of calling someone out. Nothing is ever easy in our game. Nothing is ever easy in any profession because you can't pick the person next to you to do your job unless you got really lucky and they do the same thing you do. Doesn't really happen. So I always remember how hard it is to play. Secondly, framing and delivery. We talk about this a lot. Delivery is everything. I'll give you 2 examples. Jason Kitten, I got called to we say the principal's office, my executive producer's office, my second year. Jason Kipnis, who was a teammate of mine, he was our second baseman. Routine ground ball to second base, and he threw it in the opposing dugout. Like, this is a 1,000 out of 1,000 times you make the play. It's one of the easiest plays to make. And post-game show comes up, we play the highlight. I'm like, that's inexcusable. This is the big leagues. And it was my delivery. Next morning, I get a call from my executive producer. He goes, we got to talk because you can't say that. I said, what are you talking about? Like, we play together. That's right. He goes, but you can't say that. You could say 9 times out of 10, Kip makes that play. And I know he would have. Completely different than, oh, that's inexcusable. I got it. Light bulb moment. So now, remembering how hard it is to play. Secondly, these are human beings too. And third, probably most importantly, is the emotion of fans and not insulting their intelligence. You all are smart. You know what's going on. I never want to assume that you don't know, but I also have to marry that with there are people that watch 1 billion hours a year and you see everything. So I can't insult your intelligence and be like, no, it's got to be this way. So it can be a delicate balance. Post-game shows, when we lose, as long as you tell the truth, can't get in trouble. But delivering it in a way that is kosher for not only the team, the players watch it. You know, like when you criticize and you got to go in the locker room the next day, it can't be 48 hours from now. Like if you call someone out in a way that is constructive, I always try and back it up with numbers, but I always show my face. Say, hey, we got an issue. To this day, I haven't had one player come up to me. And I think there's that camaraderie and that respect and credibility of, hey, you've been there, brother. We know. And that's what I always try and remember, no matter what. The wins are easy. You know, hell, this is the best player ever. God, he's so great. Oh, you know, that's in a way that, you know, is professional. But yeah, always remembering how hard it is to do what we do on a daily basis.
How hard is it? I'm sorry. Hello.
Yeah.
How hard is it not to weigh in on umpiring and especially weigh in on some of the recent controversies like with cheating and things like that? How hard is it not to weigh in on those kinds of things? Not that you would do that in a game, but it could come up.
I think if there's any hot button issues or controversy, anything that's off the field, we usually kind of let that go unless we have a directive from our bosses that we have to address it. Otherwise, we're given a pretty wide berth from, if you guys see a bad call, we're allowed to expound on that to a point where we're not really hosing someone pretty bad. Angel Hernandez is yes, not very good.
Yeah, if you guys don't know, in baseball, there are about 5 or 6 umpires who are, well, he's no longer with us.
If you guys go to YouTube for non-baseball people, just YouTube Angel Hernandez.
Those of you who know who this is, you're laughing because you know
it's a solid 5 to 10 minutes. It doesn't matter what video you pick. There's plenty of people that have made, like, you really are wondering, are you physically present in the same place that we are? Because if you can call it from the right field stands, how did you miss it 60 feet in front of you? It's hysterical. It really is. And I've had him as an umpire, so I totally get that. Yeah. But yeah, as long as you're measured, you know, and you're not essentially making fun of people, then you're pretty good.
Other questions? Yeah.
So I got a million questions that are going through my mind for you, but I'm going to hit you with 2 real quick. So I know that we don't have big college baseball teams here in Cleveland per se, but I know that you went you went out of state for college.
Yep.
How different would it have been if you think it would have streamlined your career by staying in Cleveland and in the general area, going to college here, per se, versus going to an out of state college as your network is? And then my second question is, who is your favorite players and teammates to work with?
Okay, I'll start with the second question. One of my favorite teams in my rookie year was Grady Sizemore, and he was basically Elvis at that point. The guy could not go anywhere. He was a superstar in our game, and my locker was 2 lockers down from him. So I grew up loving the Indians, and through high school, there were guys that I was now currently playing with that had just gotten into the league. And so that meeting of the eras, I walked over to a couple guys, I'm like, hi. I had the starstruck. I mean, I'm a big leaguer now, but I was playing with, they're my teammate. That was a pretty wow moment for me. And I think I tried to not fanboy too bad, and I think I did okay. It was a lot easier once I started playing, and we felt like equals. So that was huge. So Grady was one of my favorite. Very soft-spoken guy, but he was a killer, man. I mean, would just lay it all on the line. Such a fun dude. Trot Nixon was also, he had, let's see, I think he played 28 games the whole year. Was our unquestioned, so Austin Hedges, for people that watch this year, he's kind of like the Austin Hedges of my era. And he got probably one of the biggest hits in postseason history for us in Fenway Park, Game 2 against his old team in the Red Sox. Pinch hit off the bench, drove in the go-ahead run, and we ended up winning the game. And I mean, we probably mobbed him like he was a rookie. It was just an incredible celebration because of what he meant to us. So he was one of my favorites. Your first question, ironically, I'll take Ohio State. Ohio State never called me, never reached out, because my ranking at the time was one where they felt they wouldn't have a chance. The Southeastern Conference schools, the big baseball schools, it still would have been nice, just a courtesy of, hey, you're number 1 prospect in the state, would love for you to be a Buckeye. Nothing. University of Cincinnati, every week, calls, letters, paraphernalia, dude, you're a Bearcat, come on, So it was interesting to see the different recruiting pitches, if you will, from those in-state schools. And then even, like I said, to this day, and I wish I had my old laptop to be able to fire it back up to look at it, I probably had 25, 30 categories with all these schools. And like I said, that's back when the internet, you had to dig deep to find information. and I would rank them, a point system. And every visit or every week that passed, somehow Vanderbilt kept creeping up. And it blew my mind, like, what's going on here? Like, I feel like I'm being fair. And then my first 24 hours when I took my official visit, I'm like, oh my God, this place is unbelievable. So I committed at midnight, my first night there. It was pretty easy. They offered me a full ride. So I was like, okay, yeah, we'll do that. That's pretty good. Back when it was like 45 grand to go, I think it's 70 now. I think we were talking about
70.
that. But yeah, everyone is individual with their situation. And I knew what I liked, and it wasn't really being offered altogether at any in-state school. So 4-hour drive to Nashville probably was long enough, but close enough that I still had that connectivity. But I'm glad that I went through the work, because there were certain things that popped that I never could have guessed just on face value, for sure.
You also, in many cases, you can't really trust the materials they give you, because the materials are always geared towards certain majors, certain approaches, even areas of the country. You have to go there, you have to see it and feel it.
And to kind of parlay off that, like, again, just as we talked about with the careers or the paths that you want to go, they always told us, go walk around campus like you're a student now, or try and get as immersed into it, but with the mindset of, you're not an athlete. Can you survive and thrive as a student here? If you can do that, then the rest is history, because they're going to bring you here to play a sport. So that was the biggest thing that I wanted to go. And I took unofficial visits. I went to the University of Tennessee. I went to Georgia Tech. I went to Stanford. I went to Notre Dame. There were a lot of different feels on campuses. And I was like, would have never didn't look like this on the web. No way. And so I'm glad that I went around, stuck into my head in a couple of classrooms. You know, Vanderbilt, we had 18 kids per class. Ohio State, some of these other, 200 for a lecture. I'm like, do I want to do that? You know, I get 5 questions, so I could wait in line for office hours for now. I can't do that. I don't have the time. And then I think also the networking connectivity from the Vanderbilt degree really stood out. Of, you got CEOs all over the place, people in high ranking positions, startups, entrepreneurships, like being a graduate there and having that a phone call away was really attractive if I was never going to play again. So ironically, it's coming to life today, going to a Vanderbilt event after this. So yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
First, Jensen, thank you so much for coming. Both the careers, being a pitcher and being in broadcasting, to us listening, inspires some stage fright a little bit. How did you manage, or how do you manage the anxiety that comes up, whether you want it to or not? Mm-hmm. Like, you go to a baseball mound, you climb the hill,
right,
and there's 10,000 people in the stadium. How do you calm your nerves?
I think one of the great lessons my pitching coach in college, who is now the Cincinnati Reds pitching coach, has been for years. My freshman year, he wrote on a piece of paper, "Courage to fail." And he asked all of us to define what we believe that meant. And the easy stock answer, right, is, okay, we're all right if it doesn't go right, but are you? And that's where he really wanted to get is, can you get back up after you fall down? Can you go back and try and do the things that we need you to do to be successful? And it was just a mindset from that point forward. We were ready to risk it all every time we got to the mound. We were ready to be satisfied with the result, positive or negative, because we had put the work in. And so that courage to fail mentality for me was instituted right away when I told you guys a story about the bug landing on my nose. All I could rely on was, okay, I haven't done any of the work, but I have from being in the game a long time. I'm just going to go back to that. I'm going to fall back on what I know and then learn from that experience. And so that phrase, my freshman year, ended up being, kind of a life changer in how you approach small, big problems, real world events. I mean, you're going to come into a room where you have no idea that someone is going to decide your future, and you're going to have to, sell yourself, or someone is going to talk about you from an interaction to a person that decides your future. You just don't know where the 6 degrees of separation are. And that's why I also go back to that scouting report of never would have thought a scout would go back to his general manager and say, guy hugs his parents, doesn't show bad body language, I think we like him. How do you even fathom that as a 17-year-old kid? But that was a great lesson to learn at that time.
And I guess if you look at each team as kind of like a separate employer, there are also kind of personalities to each team. The Yankees, for instance, I mean, you might not know this. The Yankees require all their players to be clean shaven. The only exception is a mustache. That's
Correct.
it. So this is why all Yankees players look exactly the same. People, now that I've mentioned it, if you watch baseball, all Yankees players look exactly. Your beard would be out. That would be. They make you shave.
I would be paying a fine. I'd be paying a daily fine. Yes.
So I mean, if you look at each baseball team as kind of like a personality, then a scout for one team might be looking for something very specific, whereas another team they might not care about that very.
Yeah, and I'm sorry. What was your name? Samantha. And you wanted to be a stenographer, or at least try it. The great part about this city or the region, there's a boatload of hospitals, right? There's everyone has a different way of kind of doing business. They're all healthcare. They all think they know, hey, this is the best way to do it, but one may speak to you more than the other. This is why I also talk about the relationship aspect. You may never know that, hey, it might be UH to start your career, but you may end up at the clinic. And never would have guessed that I would have started pitching and end up coming back here for my quote unquote second career. Wasn't in my mind. But take advantage of those opportunities to showcase that skill set and we'll take the analogy, when I pitched every day, yes, I was going up against another team, showcasing against them, but now there's film on me for 28 other teams to look at and say, oh, we could use this guy. He's pretty good. So it's that same idea of when you do it on social media, if you do it on LinkedIn, like for me personally, will try and take clips of our pre and post game shows or from when I do Sirius XM radio and put them on little snippets, okay? Like 30 seconds, 45 seconds. That's for me. If you guys are trying to showcase what you're good at, short and simple, something I can consume. I don't know anything about being a stenographer, nothing. But if there's a way that you can portray it that I can consume, you've won the room. And it's not just this room. It's the other people that are looking at it too. And you never know who's looking at it.
Other questions? I guess I'll ask one last question. This is a classic baseball question. Who is as a pitcher, because you didn't bat hardly, One time, because they had changed the rules for National League who was your favorite batter to face and who was your least favorite batter to face?
Okay, by the numbers, statistically, Kevin Youkilis, who played for the Boston Red Sox, the first baseman, he had a career average of .714 against me.
He was a beast.
The only thing I didn't try against him was underhanding it. Maybe I should have done that. For Cleveland fans, Manny Ramirez, who is one of the great sluggers of our franchise history, I faced him 3 times. He hit 2 home runs off me. One of them is buried under our set in right center field at the stadium. But just the challenge, you get up for it. My greatest inning ever, though, ironically, came at old Yankee Stadium. My rookie year, Division Series Game 3. I struck out Derek Jeter, Bobby Abreu, and Alex Rodriguez. Jeter, who's going to be in the Hall, he's in the Hall of Fame.
This is when you clap, trust me. No one does that.
Jeter's in the Hall of Fame. Abreu is probably going to be there, and Alex Rodriguez was on steroids at that time. So it was
for all intents and purposes, might still be.
Yeah. It was one of those surreal moments. I can't, let's see. What's the age range in here? Probably early.
17, 18 to about 30?
So you guys probably have no idea what the Razor phone was like. Okay, all right. So it was the flip phone where it was like paper thin, okay? Well, at that point, we don't have the iPhones and the Androids to be able to have that big screen to text. So you're like pressing the digit multiple times to get the text through. Well, I'm trying to answer upwards of 100 texts from friends, family, teammates that have been watching at that point. I think I ran out of battery before the bus got home. But again, one of those surreal moments that I'll never forget. It was unseasonably warm. It was like 82 degrees. My bullpen coach would usually tell me the 3 guys I was facing coming up, and for whatever reason, I did not listen to him or did not hear him that day. And the old Yankee Stadium had a capacity of 62,000. It's the largest capacity at that point and probably will ever be in baseball history. I'm warming up. I'm feeling really good. Victor Martinez, to bring it home for you, I can see the whites of his teeth through the mask. Like he's smiling. Hey, Papa, you got it today, huh? And so I throw my last warm-up pitch. He throws it down to second. I run New York, comes on over the loudspeaker. And I turn around, and that's Derek Jeter's walk-up song. And I'm like, oh, here we go. Here we go. It was pretty neat. Goosebump moment still. But that was the greatest inning I ever had in my career. And just, again, all the hours, all the practice, all the adversity, more importantly, that you go through getting to that point, it all ends up coming to fruition. That's awesome. So,
All right. Thank you so much, Jensen.
thank you
Really
guys for the time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Eat. This is your professor talking. Eat. Take it with you. Don't steal the plastic containers with the drinks in them, but you can have the rest of it. Please eat and stick around. And thanks a lot for coming, guys.